That's what it is. It's basketball. It's not a fucking soft sport.
I love it, Gabe. I love it.
Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to the NBL Pocket Podcast, NBL20 season previews. We're doing them alphabetically. We've done the Adelaide 36ers. Now we move on to the Brisbane Bullets, a team that's hovering right around where it was last season. Will it be up? Will it be down? Let's find out. Now, these previews obviously are a plagiarism's not unfair of the 2013 Bill and Jalen NBA season previews, you remember. So we've ripped a lot off from there, so don't bother pointing that out. We're well aware. Let's start with the fan base mindset. Let's go ahead and play this. We all remember this movie. This is the 1996 comedy classic, Eddie Murphy classic, The Nutty Professor. This is where Sherman Klump takes his crush, Miss Purdy, to the comedy club, and it's Reggie, played by Dave Chappelle.
Who is sucking whose titties over here?
Oh, man. Just in case you're wondering, Eddie Murphy, that's Lamar Patterson. And that's Dave Chappelle, that's Shane Hill making fun of him, a whole bunch of others, even myself. That's your best player, Brisbane. People are making fun of him for being a little husky.
He must be on that new side, Slim Slow. He go outside with the red shirt
I hope everyone who made fun of his weight feels bad.
Yeah, man. I bet I cut his fat ass open and bleed chocolate milk. What would you do for a Klondike bar?
I'm rooting for you, LP. That was the fan base mindset. Everybody's laughing at the Bullets. Their best player looked a little husky in the preseason. Maybe he can do better. Let's find out. Let's go to roster watch. Let's look at who they acquired. Let's start there. They acquired from Adelaide Nathan Sobey, and their imports Braun and Singler, and then they acquired Kevin Martin as an owner, a former NBA player. That's kind of neat. Just the other day that happened. Who did they lose? Adam Gibson went off to the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. Jeremy Kendall's injured, and AJ Davis is not returning, nor is Cam Bairstow, who's gone to Europe. Let's have a look here. Consistency watch is our next segment. Why do we look at stability? Well, stability births consistency. Consistency creates culture. Culture breeds winning in the NBL. Just ask the Perth Wildcats. That's why we study it here. Let's look here. So the Brisbane Bullets had 4 of 12 roster changes. That's 33% of their roster, and that's tied for first and second in the least movement. You can probably guess who's number 1 in the list, or tied number 1 in the list. They had 1 starter departing, that of course being Cam Bairstow. No coaching changes. Lamanis is back, and even the assistant, CJ Bruton. Let's jump onto the rotation. I think this is what it's going to look like. I think it's going to be Hodgson, Braun, Patterson, Glidden, Sobey, and then backing those guys up, Will Magnay, Mika Vakona, EJ Singler, Tarangi, and Jason Kadee. Looking at NBL 19, last season this team won 14 games and lost 14. Finishing 4th. The over-under projections from topsport.com.au have this team at 13.5 wins. Tough one. I'm picking the over, and here's why. And this is the question I asked myself as to why they should be over or under. Is this team as good as last year? And or has the lay of the NBL landscape shifted that much around the Bullets? My answer is no, but then again, maybe. But at the end of the day, if I'm pushed for an answer, I say yes, they are as good. For a couple of reasons. Number one, they've got a full season of Lamar Patterson. He's their best player, and he was amazing last year, and now he gets an entire season, and not just an entire season, but a half a season and an entire season. The other thing is Nathan Sobey's really, really good at basketball. People seem to forget that. He is really, really good. He can score. He's high energy. And I also think he's going to be a really nice compliment to Lamar Patterson. I think Sobey's going to be, if he's allowed to, is going to get out in the break, run, dunk, shoot, score. He had some big games for Adelaide, and people do knock his fourth quarter scoring. And I even talked about it in the last episode about the Adelaide 36ers, and it was an issue. But also in fourth quarters, he did actually muster some big games and big scores and nice scoring runs, 6 or 8 points in a row or big score in fourth quarters. So I love Nathan Sobey. I think he's a very good player, and you can see the mindset of this team where they've gone, let's spend big on local talent that we can secure for multiple years rather than the import rat race, which, until they re-sign Patterson, they are replacing their imports. They've cast away the last two and brought in a brand new two, Patterson the only remaining. Let's look at their title odds. They're at $8. That's fourth, and these title odds are courtesy of topsport.com.au. Their highest ranked MVP is, unsurprisingly, Lamar Patterson. What might be a little surprising is he's the number 2 pick for the MVP, behind, who's number 1? They've got Casper Ware as the MVP favourite at $7. LP behind him at $8.50, but above Bryce Cotton at $9 and Melo Trimble. LaMelo Ball at $10, so read into that what you want. But there it is, LP. TopSport has him as the second best player in the NBL. A little bit high, maybe not. I've got him as the third best player behind Cotton and Casper. And maybe Andrew Bogut. Give me a second. Of the imports anyway, I've got him as the third best import behind Ware and Cotton. Also, a little side note here, their second highest ranked MVP candidate, Nathan Sobey, he's 19th at $23. So they've got 2 guys in the top 20, almost 2 guys in the top 18, which is, so they've got 2 of the best players in their starting lineup, in the team. So that's pretty good. Let's look at their import rank. So what I did here, and I spoke about it in the first one, but I wrote down every import in the league and who they played for, and then I just did a draft of the best ones. Also looking at the MVP odds to keep it not just what I thought, but also a little bit impartial, but it is mostly my own thoughts. So I had Patterson at number 3, and I had Braun and Singler at 22 and 23. I don't know what to make of them. They seem undersized. They seem like they can shoot, which is sort of the elixir and the snake oil treatment for anything that's bad, but I do just have worries about them. Werther on the Trash Talk podcast said that Braun may be the first import to go just because he's had that Pacific shrink. He's not as big as they were hoping or thought. Can he play the 4? The big question around those two is who is going to patch up the holes in this lineup in any way that they can, and they're thinking it's probably going to be Braun. Can he do it? For that reason, too many questions up in the air for me, so I had them as the 8th. They have the 8th best import rank. They're very high ceiling with Patterson, but after that, it drops away pretty quick. Their local rank, I have them as having the 3rd best locals in the NBL. Nathan Sobey is the 6th best local in my opinion. Cam Glidden number 9, Hodgson number 17. So that's their top 3. And then to get the local rank, I only took the best 3 locals from each team as a fair representative of either team. But they've also got, outside of those 3, Sobey, Glidden, Hodgson, they've also got someone like Tarangi and Mikavakona. How much he's got left, he's got a fine reputation in this league. We shall see. But as I said, 3rd best. Add those together, you've got 11th for a total ranking. That's tied 4th with Adelaide, New Zealand, and South East Melbourne. I think that's where a lot of the bookmakers have them. That's where a lot of people and writers and so forth have them as well. Let's look at their schedule watch. First 4 games, they're at Illawarra, home for Cairns, at South East Melbourne, which is the second game of a back-to-back. So they play Cairns at home and then travel to South East Melbourne. So that could be touchy for them, especially considering they come up against Ty Wesley early in their campaign. And they come up against a true, solid, banging power forward. Who is going to take Ty Wesley in that game is going to be very critical. Then they're at Adelaide, and then they're at Sydney. So they've got a pretty tough start to the year. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 of their first 5 games are on the road, and one of which is on the second game of not a back-to-back, but a 2-game round for them. That's not. They've got Cairns who are beat Adelaide who are around there, but and Illawarra. it's going to be interesting to see what kind of start this team gets off to. Let's jump on the three biggest questions for this team, and there are big questions surrounding this team. My number one question, I always like to start at the top, is Lamar Patterson in decent enough shape to carry this team for the entire season? A lot of people have been saying he'll work his way into shape. That's BS. That's paraphrased from the NBA. Be an original. You can't play yourself into shape into the NBL. It's a 28-game season, not 82 games. 28 games is 33% of the NBA 82-game regular season. 33% of the NBL season is 8 games. If Brisbane are not in a good position after 8 games, they're going to be in trouble. And if he's not in shape to carry them to a good position in 8 games, they're going to be in trouble. And when I say 8 games, the top 4 was unchanged from round 8 of NBL 19. It was Perth 1, Melbourne 2, Sydney 3rd, and Brisbane 4th. That did not change the rest of the way through the season. So you can't play yourself into shape, unless you can play himself to shape in 2 games, but that's not possible. Also, the other thing with Patterson to remember is this team had moved on from Lamar Patterson. GM Richard Clark had come out in the article by Liam Santamaria saying, and I think I'm paraphrasing, but I'm almost quoting verbatim, we've moved on from Cam Bairstow and Lamar Patterson. It looked like they were going somewhere else. There was a lot of lament from fans, and then all of a sudden they signed him. And we never quite got an answer as to why he said that. Certainly they knew they were moving on from Bairstow, and we know that. But why he threw Lamar Patterson into that conversation, and then why they changed their mind on that. Was it a ploy to lower his value or asking price? Is his now weight gain a symptom of that? Is there hard feeling? Is there not? That's a question that's going to play out in the year. If I had to give my idea, I'd say probably not, but not a good look. My second biggest question for this team is, and this is the one that's pretty common around there, are they too small? What De Braun, Singler, and Vacona, who's now 37 years old, and after having tearing his Achilles in NBL 19, what can they bring to this team, and how can they plug up that 4 spot if things get down and dirty and messy in the paint? I really like Tarangi. Most improved last year. Can he take another step? Huge question for them. My other question is, are they big enough with those guys? Does it matter? This Brisbane team is seemingly pushing all in on the analytical basketball trends. 3 in keyway, switchability between 4 and all the way to 1 or 2, switchability between those 4 positions. And I guess the other question is, when you're talking about the big question, is can Matt Hodgson and Will Magnay stay on the floor? I think Magnay's in a moon boot was for their last preseason game. Can he get good, solid minutes and contribute in those good, solid minutes? Looked athletic, looked handy in the preseason. You don't want him playing huge minutes. Can Hodgson stay healthy? Can he, not get into early foul trouble? They are both foul prone, and there are injury concerns surrounding both of them. My third biggest question is around Nathan Sobey. People were very critical of him at Adelaide. Does Lamanis, the flow, and Brisbane change things in that respect? The fit doesn't present as great on paper. Again, Sobey I've got as the number 6 ranked local, behind number 5 Corey Webster, and ahead of number 7 Daniel Johnson. And not by a lot. I don't have him behind Webster by a lot, and I don't have him ahead of Daniel Johnson by a lot. He was great under Joey Wright and really fun to watch. Is the Bullet system and Lamanis going to be too stuffy? This is going to be harsh, but horrible to say. But Sobey and Glidden got their free trip to the FIBA World Cup. Now the real work begins for them. And that's harsh to say, but it seems to have passed that. Certainly there would have been that conversation of come and play for the national coach. It may be in your favour. I'm not saying he shouldn't have been at the FIBA World Cup. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there certainly tends to that appearance. Side note, not a major question for the year, but Jason Giddey, he's in a better situation this year. I think as a starter last year, he wasn't terribly productive. I think as a 6th man, he'll be better, especially with the likes of, I really like the combination of Giddey, Sobey, and Glidden, and Patterson. I think that is a nice little combination, and it's a way that you can get more out of Jason Giddey. Maybe not huge numbers-wise, but just take the pressure off him to perform more like he did when he was at the Kings. it's really interesting, these Brisbane lineups, and we talk about switchability. They've just got crazy switchability, What is going to be their final 5 on the court? It could very well be Kadee, Sobey, Glidden, Patterson, Hodgson. It could be Sobey, Glidden, Patterson, Tarangi, Hodgson. Could be Vacona. Could be Braun. We don't know what we're getting out of him. Really interesting team. So if you're a Brisbane Bullets fan or living in Brisbane, it's a fun little experiment and a good team to watch. But they're my major questions. Let's jump on to Hollywood calling.
But Hollywood finally called.
Team storylines for the year. So how I think their team is going to play out in a Hollywood script style. And we're going back to the Nutty Professor. It's Sherman Klump is stealing his resolve.
You're not
That's Lamar Patterson waking up to himself on the couch.
Do not lose themselves. You have to work, work, work. Everybody up. Come on. Get up. You two at home, everybody up and say, yes,
Yes, he can.
I can. Say it again.
Yes, Lamar Patterson can.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes.
Quiet down, guys.
How about down there, Mr. Wilson?
Clump, shut up.
Can.
LP's losing the weight and feeling great, and they're winning games. Glidden, Sobey, LP, let's do it. I think all is going to work out well, and I think they're going to just lock down that 4th spot in the finals, again just ahead of the Adelaide 36ers. If you like or disliked or have any thoughts on this preview of the Brisbane Bullets, by all means get in touch on Twitter at NBL Pocket Pod or in an email, nblpocketpodcast@gmail.com. Now, I don't know whether you're listening to this as a podcast or perhaps even on YouTube. They're both available on both. And always a big thank you to NBL2K for creating all the lovely NBA 2K rosters you see behind these videos on YouTube. Both add a little bit different a thing to the conversation. I hope you enjoyed this one, and next I'll be back with, well, it's going alphabetical, so you know who it is. It will be the Cairns Taipans.
Lilo, Peebo, Lou Rawls, Teddy Pendergrass, Teddy P.
Number 6. Yeah.